We got a D35 here, and it has a problem that I have to deal with occasionally. Occasionally. I also have a big thunderstorm going on right now, so when you hear the crashes and the booms and the rattles, it's a thunderstorm. All right, D35 and 1970s, of course. Big holes in the bridge, or in the seat. See those holes? Big holes. Okay, let me put the guitar down and I'll explain why. Somebody has scooted the holes back and then moved the saddle back in order to correct the intonation on this guitar. And that is one way to do this. It is not my favorite way to do this. I have a video on this about the various ways of correcting the intonation on a 70s Martin. And an oversized bridge with a scooted back saddle is not my favorite way to do this because it changes the leverage on the bridge. I would much rather have a bridge that is correct. Let me grab one here. Here is I think this is a stock bridge, but anyway, it's got a saddle slot right here. The saddle slot sits very much on the forward edge of this bridge so that the leverage on this thing is causing the back to move. It has a different leverage here. Now, if you move that saddle into the middle of this bridge, like say where the pinholes were, then the front is going to create some leverage here. So in other words, if you do it like this, just give it some more leverage here. The front keeps this thing from tipping. Whereas if you put your thing up here, it wants to tip this way. Just think of a bookshelf. Just think of a bookshelf. Real tall bookshelf up against the wall. If you don't put legs on the front of that bookshelf or anchor it to the studs on the wall, the bookshelf wants to fall forward because generally, it's tippy. It's tippy. So you put legs in front of it to keep it from tipping forward. Well, that's the same thing that happens when you have a saddle slot that's in the middle of the bridge. You've kept that bridge from tipping forward. You make it balanced here. And that might be good, it might not be good, but it's not the way that vintage Martins are made. It's not the way that the bridge is, quote, intended to work. It's intended to work with that saddle slot on the front of the bridge and the back of it tilting forward like this. So to use an extreme example, what if you put the saddle slot clear on the back of the thing and then, drilled holes in the top and put the pins back there. But if your saddle was sitting on the very back of this thing, like this, you see, it's not going to rotate forward at all because it's got all this leverage in front. And so that bridge is not going to want to rotate very much at all, as opposed to this, where it's going to want to almost tip forward. So, for better or worse or whatever, moving the saddle back changes the leverage aspect of that bridge. So, when I'm discussing this with my customer here on this guitar, we agreed that we're going to make a correct looking bridge, and also on this guitar, even though it's a D35, we're going to use a rosewood on it, a hot rosewood, because he wants it bright. He's got a large sound hole on this thing, and he wants this D35 to be really super bright and snappy. So we're going to put a maple bridge plate in it. We're going to put a rosewood bridge on it, probably maybe a Honduran rosewood, and we're going to make this thing snap and bark. All right, so point is, I took the old bridge plate off, took the old bridge off. I found these great big holes under here where somebody had drilled these out and put dowels in them and then re-drilled the whole new holes through that. I do that, but I don't use big holes. All I do is fill in the existing holes and then just drill new holes through there. But for whatever reason, the guy that did this before wanted to put big holes in here. Now, I'm very, very reluctant to just slap a bridge plate on there without filling up these holes somehow. I also don't think a dowel is a very good way to do it. I use dowels when I'm doing small ones because I have questions about whether you can even make this strong or not. And that's part of our debate here is, can you really even strengthen this anymore? Right now, there's no bridge plate in here. So let's look at this top, and I'm going to push on it here. And you can see that it's still got a little bit of strength from the bridge going over here in between these holes. It's still surprisingly strong. So anything that I can add to this is going to make it stronger. The question what I want to do here is make it as strong as I possibly can. So you could put dowels in there. I don't know how much filling these holes is actually going to strengthen this, because the wood's cut, and so you'll never make a bond with the back of this hole right here. So you'll never make a good bond with the back of this. There's always going to be broken, damaged wood here. So, right off the bat, don't get too enthusiastic about this, saying, oh, I'm going to make it super strong. I'm not convinced you really can. I think the only way that you can really make this strong is to actually cut this wood out here and inlay a new piece of spruce on the inside of this guitar with a little platform in it. So you make a little platform out of spruce like this, and it would be super thin here, and it would have a platform that came up that would stick into the side here. So you'd have a step. So you have one piece of spruce. This is hard to explain to you, but you would have a step. Part of it would be back here, part of it would be up here, and then the step would come up, but it would be one piece of spruce. So the whole thing locks into there. Let's get a couple of pieces of wood and see if I can't illustrate this a little bit better than I am currently doing. Assume that this is one piece of wood, not glue, no glue. You can make it fairly strong with glue, but it'd be better if you just had one piece of wood. So this whole thing would go in here like this, and that would be a really strong system. It's all attached to each other. This piece here would be pretty thin, probably at least half this thickness. You would overlay the top, your step would come in, it would fill this in, your bridge would then glue down on that, and you put a bridge plate on top of this. If you could use a really small bridge plate then at that point, but that would make the strongest. It's also the most complicated because you've got to really get all your steps and everything really, really good. I've done that before. I don't think this guitar warrants it yet because I'm pushing down on here and it's actually pretty strong. But I've got another video on repairing a busted bridge seat. And that one, when I pushed on it, man, it just was ready to cave in. That one had to have the spruce underneath that. So that's one option you could do here. Well, that's two options. One option would be put dowels in there. Just throw some dowels in there and put a new bridge plate on. I'm not convinced that dowels are really strong. Just because of the wood. I don't know. They might be in this small of an area, but you could use dowels. And I wouldn't argue too hard about that. I think the strongest system that you can do is with a stepped subplate under here with the bridge plate on top of that. And that's going to be really strong because the bridge is going to be glued onto that little step. So that's going to give you, your bridge is going to be glued to the step, and it's also going to be glued to the top. So you've locked that whole system together pretty nicely. And that's definitely, in my opinion, the strongest system you can do. That's a lot of work too. And you have to cut this out, which I'm a little bit reluctant to do right now. And if it was caving in and wanting to cave in, I would do it. But in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make some plugs. And plugs are different than dowels in that the grain runs with them. So I've made these plugs out of spruce. And you can see that the grain in here, it's hard to see, but there's grain going in this spruce. So I have the strength of spruce. And the reason for the quotes is because this is such a small little piece and it's glued on there that I would not bet a whole lot of money that these are real super strong. I don't know that these are a significant improvement over a dowel, but I'm doing this just as an exercise in case that I ever did need to do this. So, it's a piece of spruce, and the grain is running this way. When you go this way, it's weak, you can see it flex. It's pretty flexy. So you don't want your grain running this way because that's not going to add any strength to the system. But if your grain is running this way, you try to flex it this way, it's super stiff. That's why you use spruce on tops. It's light, it's stiff. They used to make airplanes out of this stuff. They may still. We want the grain running this way, parallel to the top. So we're going to get the stiffest plug that we can do. So that's why I'm using plugs here, and I'm just doing practice and making plugs. If you use the dowel, I wouldn't argue with you too hard. but I'm going to use plugs. And here's the kicker, though. We got to make these plugs. I had to figure out how big this was, how big these holes are. So I got drill bits, and I started putting drill bits into it till I got a size. And this drill bit fits pretty good. A little bit snug on some of these, but the average is that this fits pretty good. And this was 11/32 of an inch. Well, 3/8 didn't go, and 1/2 inch didn't go, and I didn't want to drill it out anymore, and I didn't want to use anything that's too small. You're just defeating the purpose of this thing. So I needed 11/32 of an inch plugs. There's not a plug cutter alive that'll cut 11/32 of an inch, and I don't have it, and I would have to order one, and I don't want to wait for 2 weeks for this thing to come in. So I decided to make plugs. And here's how I made the plugs. I hunted around, and I used the drill bit too, but I eventually found this little piece of plastic here that's actually the handle to a magnifying glass. And guess what? It's the right size. And if you turn it over like this, you can see the metal just about fits and the plastic fits. So what I've done is I've super glued a square of spruce on here. And then what we're going to do, I played a couple of ways of doing this, but I think the best way, the easiest way I found, is to chuck this up into a drill, cordless drill. Chuck it up. Make sure it spins about right. And what we're going to do now is we're going to walk over here to my belt sander. So hang on. All right, you're not going to be able to see this, I don't think, actually work. But what you do is you spin this, and then you just spin it on the drill press like this. Let's see if I can do this. It's going to be noisy, okay? Hang on. Here's the noise. And that's the fastest and best way I found to do these. And I've made these plugs, and they are marked little e, B, D, G. So these hole sizes were just a little bit different from each other. And I test fit each one of them till they just barely fit. And that's what we're going to go with. So I'm going to go over here. I'm going to make this plug, and then we're going to come back over here, and I'll show you the next step on this process. Okay? Oh, I ran this over there in the drill press, and it's getting about right. And I know it's right because I tested it. We're still hooked up on this. And so what I do is press fit it into this hole. And by wiggling it around just a little bit, it fits. So now I'm going to reach over here and snap this off. There we go. That one came off. And you can see the grain on this. You can see the grain on this one pretty clear. So it's going to go in a certain way. And I better label that one as A, which I've done. So now I've got the little e, I've got the B, I've got the G, A, and E. Now, the reason I wanted to get these all done before I put the plate in is because there's going to be glue squeeze out coming up when I put the plate in, and I want to take advantage of that to glue the plugs in. If I put the plate in and then did the plugs later, I'm going to have all this glue in here that I'm going to have to clean out, and I'm not going to be confident that I can even clean it out. It's going to make a mess. So it's better to just wait until you've got your plugs ready to go. So you can go away if you want to right now that I've explained this, but I'm going to finish this process of putting the bridge plate in and all that, and you can see it happen. So when I put a plate in, I always scrape it. And this gets rid of the oxidization on the wood, and it makes the glue stick better. I'm actually going to put this dust over here because I might need this dust. Might need this dust to fill in some of these holes, and I'll show you that. But I'm going to scrape this clean, and I'll put my name and date in here. as I do in all my bridge plates, so that we know who's responsible for this thing, for better or worse. So put it in over here. Brian Kimsey. That's me. September 2025. And this is a maple bridge plate. And we're going to be using fish glue. Yeah, I've got some fish glue over there. So, maple fish. Right, put that down there. Got my dust over here. And then I got to scrape out the top of the guitar too, on the inside, so I get a piece of razor blade like this. I've already done it, I think. We're going to make sure. You notice I'm recovering from my shoulder injury. This is the first time I've been able to actually work on a guitar like this, so I'm using my shoulder. And it's not doing too bad. I mean, the pain is not bad. It's really super stiff. And I've got a... cramp. I've got a pretty good bump on that collarbone. Probably never go down, but... Alright. That's good. It doesn't take a lot of scraping, you just oxide. And like I said, I think I've already done it. I just was doing it again. I put a mirror in here. And my light. Nebo lights, man, these little Nebo LEDs are fantastic. I use them so much for everything. Fish glue, thunder. Thunder, lightning. I am but a poor boy. Smear that out. I like to put glue here on the edge so that it glues to the brace. Might add a little bit of strength, I don't know. I just like to do it. Gets it off my finger too. Just smear that there, smear that there. Drill out of the way. And in we go. And I'll show you this when I get it in. I've already got this marked, tested, checked. Everything is checked on this bridge plate. It is correct and good to go. Put it in, make sure it fits. Feels good. Okay. Fish glue, hold it in there. I'm taking a mirror. I'm going to come in here and check the edges. Okay, we can take a look if you want to. There's your bridge plate. Let's come around over here. Okay, so that's what we got there. Got the bridge plate. I got a little bit of glue squeeze out coming up right here. You can see it coming up. And I need to get hustling here, quit fussing at the camera. All right, now. Get some clamps. And I have a nice piece of wood back here somewhere. This one looks good. I'm going to put this clamped in the middle. And you will notice that the glue will squeeze up immediately. As soon as I start clamping. Clamp in between these two, right there. There we go. Clamp that one in. Looks good. All right, Now, I'm going to go ahead and put these in here. This is the little E. It's marked. I'm going to get the spruce grain, and you can see the edges right here. Here's the edge of the, so you can see the grain. The grain is running this way, and that's the whole point of doing it with the plugs. So just push it in there, like this. And you can see some glue squeezing out here, which is good. We'll put more glue in there in just a minute. In fact, I'll probably go ahead and put a little bit in. I want a little bit more squeeze out than I got right there. So let's get some more hide glue or fish glue. Put a couple drops in there. I want to see it squeeze out on the sides. Make sure I get the sides. There we go. Okay, who's next? B. There's your grain. Beautiful. And G. There's your grain. Go slide this one in here. There you go. Got it. Good. Squeeze. Definitely getting glue squeeze out. And then this one. Stuck on my fingers. Okay. Give me a pair of pliers here. Turn it a little bit. Turn it, turn. To everything there is a season. Yeah. There's A. Got my grain. And E. And there we go. All right. There's all 6 plugs in place. I'm getting really good glue squeeze out there. And got one more clamp to put in. I waited because I needed the room to work. We're going to see some serious squeeze out now. I'll get this last one. There we go. Okay, and then 2 of these. And I need another clamp. This one usually works. Right there. Okay, got a little squeeze out on the front of the plate, which I want to see. Front of the plate's right there. Now, I got all that in there. We really need to get another piece of wood over the top of this to put some pressure on that. I don't think it's completely necessary because, like I said, kind of question how much strength we're going to get, but we should do it. So I'm going to pull this one out. This. Yeah, that'll work. What I'm trying to do is get a clamp on the front edge of the bridge plate, but this is doing pretty good. Normally I'd get it right on the front edge of the bridge plate, but this is decent. This is decent. Now, you can't push too hard because you're pushing down, and you don't want to push the bridge plate out of the way. You're just trying to hold the dowels down. So, yeah, I like that. Yeah, that's good. I could. I got room for it here. I don't normally use this clamp, but we could go ahead and come in here with this. Get rid of the front edge of that bridge plate for sure. Right here. Barely gonna get it. Nah. Yeah. Got it. All right. Man, that's a lot of clamps. That's why you have clamps. Let's take a look. So this piece of wood here is pressing down on the plugs, make sure they're squished down onto the bridge plate. And then I've got a lot of clamps going on in here. Let's see if we can get this in here. So I've got the front edge of the bridge plate clamped down. I've got 3 on the rear. I've got a lot of clamps on here. I normally don't use 6, normally I use 5, but because of this deal, that's what I ended up doing. So that's nice and snug. I feel really good about that. Now I'm going to let that dry for quite a while, at least until tonight. And then I'll come in here and I will use some chisels and planes and scrapers and things like this. You know, whatever it takes, and I'm going to smooth that off over there and level the plugs out and get the bridge sheet fitting nice and snug and everything so it's nice and clean, flat, level, and all that. But that's one approach on how to fill the holes in a bridge plate. And we had a discussion about whether or not it was even effective. I don't know. You know, you'd have to test it and see. But this didn't take a whole lot of time to do that. And it's at least as good as dowels. And should be a little bit better. You know, I don't know. So we'll see. But it just was something I thought, yeah, I probably would need to do something like that on this. And I know I made it a little bit stronger. So I do have good spruce on there. I've got good spruce glued down to a brand new bridge plate, which is strong. And it should also have enough glue to squoze out where it's going to glue pretty good to the sides. So that the plugs are going to glue good to the sides. Not a perfect fit, but decent. You know, it'll add a little bit of strength. And then I'm going to set the bridge down on top of that. And we should be good. I feel pretty comfortable about it being as strong as it can be. So, all right, see you later. All right, here we go. There's my plugs. And I used this tool here, which worked really, really good on spruce. I've used this before on dowels and things, and doesn't cut dowels nearly as good. But because I have the spruce grain, man, this just made beautiful shaves here. Got everything nice and level, and it looks really good. So I'll clean this up, and I'll make a new bridge, and there we go. But you know, you see what you think about it. What do you think about my approach here? You know. I think that's the best I could do, given all of the options. You know, like I discussed, you're either going to cut out a lot more wood and put some more spruce in there. I didn't want to do that, you know. And I thought this was a little bit better than dowels. I wouldn't do this for the regular pinholes that are small, 3/16, I think. You know, whatever the little dowel is. I just use dowels on those because those are just small holes. But these big holes here, I hesitated to use dowels on them. I just thought, you know, spruce is going to be aesthetically more pleasing. And so that's what I did. It didn't take that long, you know. It took me an hour or so to get everything done and figure out how to turn the circles and everything. And it was better than waiting for a plug cutter to come in because I would like to get this bridge on here. I don't know if that's going to happen. I'd like to get that done before Winfield, but at least I've got the bridge plate in there. I've got the popsicle brace replacement in here. I might be able to make a bridge tomorrow. We'll see. I don't know. That'd be sweet if I could get a bridge done and glued on here and leave it while I'm at Winfield. So, but it's moving along at least. You know, I got my shoulder where it's working a little bit. I mean, the mobility's great on my shoulders. You know, that's not a problem. It's just stiff. And if I took my shirt off, you would see my collarbone. Yeah, actually, you can probably see it through this here. but I mean, it's sticking up that high, and I work on it, and this is the first day I have not worn a brace in several weeks, well, in 6 weeks, and so it's tired, but that brace keeps your shoulder up, and anyway, this first day I've been able to move and work, so that's good, you know. It's not too bad. So, all right, let's get this thing edited and uploaded and out of here. See ya.